Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Sarah Wong. Our top stories tonight. 12% of people interviewed have been harassed in their workplace, with women targeted more than men. All on board are evacuated safely after a Tibet Airlines plane catches fire in an aborted takeoff in Chongqing. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un declares a national emergency as his country reports its first COVID outbreak. The Equal Opportunities Commission says 1 in 8 people experience sexual harassment at work. This was disclosed in its first report on workplace and online sexual harassment. Johanna Chen has the details.
The Equal Opportunities Commission has published its first survey on sexual harassment in Hong Kong after interviewing just over 5,000 people by phone between March and June last year. Of nearly 4,000 people who worked in the past 2 years, 1 in 8, or 11.8%, claimed they had been sexually harassed. Women aged 18 to 34 were more vulnerable. The nature of workplace sexual harassment included suggestive comments or jokes made to a third party, as reported by 61.5% of those surveyed. Suggestive comments made directly to the victim accounted for almost 38%, physical contact 22.6%, and lewd gestures 21.5%. Most victims responded passively, with nearly 61% avoiding the harassers, almost 50% telling them off, and only 14.7% making a formal report. The EOC noted that in cases where repeat clients continue to harass staff, the government should look into making the companies responsible for sexual harassment cases.
There are some industry where you get repeated customer, not one-off customers, and the employer has that knowledge. They should be liable, if they don't do anything to prevent this from happening again.
Most of the same group of people interviewed surfed the internet in the past 2 years, and almost 18% reported sexual harassment, mainly from receiving indecent images or suggestive messages. But more men, 18.3%, said they experienced online sexual harassment than women.
I think the environment that they are in, when they come to their conversations, their jokes, all these things would gradually fall under those dirty jokes, sharing of explicit images, and one of them become a victim in the process. So it is there, and we're just not looking at it from that angle.
Ula added men's awareness on sexual harassment is lower. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
The Foreign Ministry office in Hong Kong has lashed out at Western nations that denounced the arrest of 4 people, including Catholic Cardinal Joseph Zeng. They were detained for allegedly colluding with foreign forces.
We do strongly condemn the arrests of Cardinal Joseph Zen, Margaret Ng, Kwai Po Kwong, and Denise Ho in arresting these veteran activists, scholars, and religious leaders under the so-called national security law. Hong Kong authorities have again demonstrated that they will pursue all means necessary to stifle dissent and undercut protected rights and freedoms.
In response, the Foreign Ministry office accused the West of smearing Hong Kong's national security police and called on foreign forces to stop playing dumb. 90-year-old Zhang was released on bail late last night, along with Ng, Hui, and Ho, several hours after their arrest. They were trustees of the 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund, which helped anti-government protesters pay their legal and medical fees. The Vatican expressed concern over Zhang's arrest and is monitoring developments. The University of Hong Kong has good news for Form 6 students who might have missed a score in the university entrance exam because of COVID. It has introduced a new admission scheme, which is more flexible, so candidates have a chance to be enrolled. Joanna Ho reports.
The University of Hong Kong says 6 formers who do not achieve at least grade 3 in the 4 subjects as required in the Diploma of Secondary Education exam can be considered for admission if they get grade 2 in 1 subject, Chinese, English, or 2 elective subjects. Undergraduate Admissions Director Bennett Yim says this will give students more flexibility, as COVID could have disrupted their preparations for the exam. He said it would be hard on candidates if they have to resort to associate degrees or overseas education just because they missed a scoring requirement in one of the subjects. But the overall best 5 or best 6 score of students who opt for this system will be deducted by 10% for compensation. If after this a candidate can attain the curriculum's estimated admission score, there is a big chance of being enrolled. Yim said the emphasis is to provide students with more flexibility and enhance transparency.
I would say it's not harder because you can imagine the student in the past, if they did not meet the basic requirement, they won't even have a chance of entering Hong Kong U. In the past, only selected number of students who kind of come to be aware of the possibility of coming to ask for this special consideration, they will be considered. The rest of the students basically are not getting the information, then they will not even know there's a chance for being considered.
Yim said the university will arrange special interviews for this group of students who put HKU's curriculums in their JUPAS Band A selection after the DSE results are released. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
More than 600 households in Saiwan Estate in Kennedy Town have been placed under COVID lockdown. That's after the Center for Health Protection found a very high viral load from sewage samples taken there. 5 patients detected so far in the estate come from 4 households who live in units spaced apart from each other. There are also fears of transmission at a snooker club in Hong Kong. At least 4 patrons have been infected, including 2 men who recently returned from the United States and the Philippines. Hong Kong today recorded another 294 infections and 1 COVID-related death. China has pledged full support for North Korea, which has locked down all major cities after declaring its first COVID outbreak. State media reported that a subvariant of the highly transmissible Omicron strain was found in the capital, Pyongyang. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, who arrived for a high-level meeting wearing a face mask, called the flare-up a severe national emergency and vowed to stamp out the virus. Pyongyang had previously said it was COVID-free and kept its border closed as the rest of the world struggled through the pandemic. Not a single person in North Korea has been vaccinated, raising risks of a health crisis swiftly spiraling out of control in a country of 25 million people. All 122 people aboard a Tibet Airlines plane were evacuated safely after it caught fire on the tarmac in the southwestern city of Chongqing. Dozens of people were slightly injured in the ill-fated takeoff. Large plumes of black smoke soar into the sky after a Tibet Airlines plane burst into flames during takeoff at Chongqing's Jiangbei International Airport. Flight TV 9833 was departing for the Tibetan city of Ningchi at around 8 a.m. when an anomaly forced it to veer off the runway. A fire then broke out on the left side of the plane, sending panicked passengers fleeing with their luggage as emergency crews put out the blaze. All 113 passengers and 9 crew members were safely evacuated. 36 people suffered minor injuries, including bruises and sprains, and were sent to hospital. The Civil Aviation Administration said the fire erupted after the engine of the Airbus A319 aircraft scraped the ground. The aborted takeoff occurred less than 2 months after China's deadliest aviation disaster since 1994. On March 21st, a China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737-800 crashed in Guangxi, killing all 132 people on board. Investigators are still trying to uncover the cause of that tragedy because the 2 black boxes were severely damaged, leaving few clues. There are growing calls for an independent investigation into the killing of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Aklaq, who was shot in the head in the occupied West Bank yesterday. An Israeli human rights group released a video which it says refutes the Israeli government's claim that Palestinian gunmen were responsible. Tensions escalated in Jerusalem with clashes between Israeli security forces and Palestinians outraged over the killing of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Aklak. Baton-wielding police sent demonstrators scattering as they swooped in to make arrests. Several protesters hoisting Palestinian flags were injured. The violence erupted after Abu Aklak, a veteran Al Jazeera TV journalist, was shot in the head while covering an Israeli army operation in Jenin. Another Palestinian journalist was shot in the back. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas stood solemnly as Abu Aklak's coffin arrived in Ramallah for a state memorial ceremony. Earlier, mourners gathered outside Al Jazeera's office to pay tribute to the 51-year-old as they carried her body into the building. The Israeli military said it's unclear who fired the fatal bullet after initially blaming the Palestinians. Israel released a video showing the area where Palestinian gunmen were accused of opening fire, but an Israeli human rights group disputed the military's claim.
There is no way that it is possible that the gunfire seen in the video clip distributed by the Israeli government is the gunfire that killed the journalist.
As Israel launched an investigation, its main ally, the United States, took a cautious approach, but the Palestinians called for stronger action.
We want this global outcry to be translated into concrete steps to go after those criminals who have led to the assassination.
She was wearing attire that was clearly marked her as a journalist, but we are going to wait for the investigation to go where it goes.
The Committee to Protect Journalists said since 1992, at least 18 journalists were killed in Israel and the occupied territories. The city's de facto central bank has intervened for the first time in 18 months to prop up the Hong Kong dollar and did it twice today. The monetary authority bought local currency totaling 5.6 billion Hong Kong dollars to maintain the peg with the US dollar. This came after the Hong Kong unit fell to 7.85 against the greenback. That's the weakest point in the trading band, which allows the local currency to fluctuate between $7.75 to $7.85 to the American dollar. Hong Kong's currency lost ground after the United States raised interest rates last week, leading to a capital outflow. Regional stock markets retreated today on fears of a larger increase in U.S. interest rates because inflation in the United States reached a fresh 40-year high at 8.3%. The Hang Seng Index gave up 2.2% as it dropped to a two-month low. The tech sector led the market on its southbound journey, with e-commerce giant Alibaba plunging 6.6%. Rival JD.com tumbled 7.8% after it had to delay the listing of its fintech unit. Mainland property stocks also lost ground, with Country Garden down 7%. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 444 points. Top 10 active stocks: Meituan down $4.40, Tencent down $6.20, and JD.com down $16.20. Kuaishou Technology down 35 cents, AIA up 40 cents, and CCB down 11 cents. Floor is trading against Hong Kong dollar. Euro is trading at 8.17, British pound 9.58, and Australian dollar 5.38. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is down 158 points. On to the weather now. The rainy weather continues tomorrow with heavy showers and squally thunderstorms. Temperatures range between 24 and 27 degrees. A wet weekend ahead, while the sunshine will return early next week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for this Thursday night. Join us for more updates at 11. I'm Sarah Wong. Thanks for watching and take care.